And now we welcome our Facebook community that is joining us live this morning. Welcome to the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living. As we declared earlier, we are the church of what's happening now. And we embrace the technology that is with us and that is expressing itself this morning in a multiplicity of ways. Our theme for the month is living as compassionate conduits. Um, do you ever have this? And this is an experience that we're going through right now. Do you ever have one of those days or one of those experiences where you think you're going in one direction and God has a different idea? I know there are times when Spirit will be processing a download through me, and it's the most fabulous thing, that the idea that has dropped into my spirit. And I want to get up and rush to the computer and jot it down, because I find that when I put something on the computer, I can easily go back and adjust it. If I write something down, I can't always read my handwriting. And so that's how Spirit has been working with me this past week. I'll get these fabulous downloads, and then I'll go to the computer. And by the time I've logged onto the computer, I've seen a gazillion things that I could do related to packing. And then I go, okay, what did I come here for? And so that, in a way, was how my week has been, especially in preparing for this talk. And so I don't know where this is going today, but welcome to the ride. We'll enjoy this ride of spirit, this ride of faith. Last week, our topic was the divine authority to choose, recognizing that choice is an essential point of power that we have, and that we continually make conscious choices when we are awake, and we direct our lives from our authentic choices. And what supports us on this journey is our consistent spiritual practices that cultivates the qualities within us, and we reclaim our power by listening to our own inner voice, and we decide to no longer allow others to think for us. And that is a segue into our talk today. The question, what is God giving you? What is God giving you? Now, we longstanding metaphysicians know the answer to this. It's a simple one-word answer. God is giving us everything. We know this. And yet, our human mind still likes to have some details. And so I'm going to share with you a few details from our Science of Mind teaching and from some personal perspectives that identify what God is giving to me. And I'm sure that you will identify as we go along the things that God is giving to you. God has already given us everything. Dr. Holmes says that it is our job to awaken to it, to be woke, to be awake, to be awakened. We're seeing a theme, a pattern that is emerging here through our series of talks. Let us fully know that we're supported at all times as we step into our aliveness and our awakeness. It is true that God is giving everything to us, because what is true for God must be true for each one of us. We are manifestations of God. Manifestations show up in our lives as answers to our prayers. We know that prayer is like a seed. The seed contains everything that is required for it to fully grow and germinate and blossom into its fullness. And so the answer is already contained in the prayer. This is why in the scripture, I believe it says that as we speak, God knows what the desires of our heart is. And so the answer is already yes before we even utter the words. How comforting that is to know. The same is offered as an oak tree. All of the elements of an oak tree is contained in an acorn. And so from this tiny acorn grows this massive oak tree that stands the test of time and is brilliant. If you have an idea, the manifestation for that idea is already contained in the universe. And I want to share with you some evidence of how that is revealing itself in our weekly visioning sessions. And I do extend an invitation to our community to join us on Saturday mornings for our visioning experience as we vision for the highest and good for the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living. And you can find the Zoom link for that in our weekly newsletter. Evidence of being open to God's highest idea revealed itself yesterday um, as a developing theme that has been emerging over the last couple of weeks. And that is a resurgence of our Monterey Center for Spiritual Living community, a community that is centered in love, that is centered in peace, and that is centered in openness. And, sometimes we like to bury our head in the sands and pretend that outer circumstances do not impact us. But as a community, I think we have to acknowledge that we have gone through some tremendous experiences in the last year and a half, possibly, um, from the choice of Reverend Debbie to take a new path in her life as a minister, to the open pulpit, to having the guest speakers come in, and then through the candidating process and the selection process. Um, and then the COVID-19 hit and the center was closed along with it felt like the entire world was shut down. And this beautiful gem of technology revealed itself. And now we have our non-local connections that have allowed us to expand. And so it may seem like things were taken away, and yet we have expanded. And that expansion is showing up as a resurgence. We know that our consciousness makes a difference within ourselves, a difference within each other, a difference within our community, and a difference within our world. And we raise our vibration. This was something else that came through in the visioning yesterday. We raise our vibration from I can't to I can. I can't to I can. And I share with you this excerpt from the Holmes Reader on Practical Wisdom that really resonated with me. And this is what Ernest Holmes writes. When the members of a community love one another, that community is solid, prosperous, and happy. Suppose, just suppose, we make a daily habit of feeling like we like people, feeling that we like people, and that they like us. What a novel idea. We belong to them, and they belong to us. In a very real sense, everyone we meet is part of our own family to love and to enjoy. And I really feel that this is the resurgence that is revealing itself through our community as the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living. We are a gift from God, and we are a gift to each other. And let's keep this gift flowing, keep it in the circulation, keep it in the flow. I have a little show and tell for you this morning. I have a plant, and you can see that it's in various stages of new sprouts. And I also have a $100 bill. And so the question, which is more spiritual, the $100 bill or the plant? Some may say the plant, some may say the $100 bill, some may say both and. And I go with the both and. Both are equally spiritual in the mind of God because they are gifts from God. Are we resisting one gift and believing in the other gift? Or are we embracing both gifts? Our responsibility is to continue to nurture both with appreciation and good stewardship. And I think some of you will relate to this old story. The last time we broadcast live from the center as a tech team was on the 11th of October. And keep this date in mind. And that weekend when I came down, I brought some books that I'm going to have in my office and some personal items as I begin to create a new work home for me at the center. And one of the items that I brought down was a plant. And it was a species of this plant, only the pot was really full and brimming over. I think Tina will remember that plant because she plant sat it for me when I sold our home in Richmond and moved following my wife's transition. Um, and so the plant was there. Now, remember I said October the 11th that I was at the center? Well, the tech team decided to perfect their skills doing this remotely. And so we didn't come back to the center. We haven't come back to the center yet as a tech team. Um, but I came down on Friday, which was November the 5th, to pick up the key to my apartment and to handle some business. Um, and of course, I think you may know where this story is going. When I walked into the office, the plant was exactly as I'd expected it to be. It's limp and some of the leaves are starting to turn color a little bit. And so now I have the opportunity to nurture it, to love it, to water it, to fertilize it, to do whatever is required to restore it to its spiritual brilliance. And this is how spirit works in our lives each day, each moment, we are restored in some shape, in some form to our original spiritual brilliance. What has God given you? We know that working in the absolute is where awakening occurs, awakening to our truth and to transcend our limiting beliefs. And for those of you who may be fairly new to the teachings of science of mind, um, we use the term absolute as another way of identifying God. And remember from the visioning I shared earlier that something else that is emerging and is getting our attention is moving from I can't to I can. We're to pay attention to when we say I can't. I can't shows us where our growing edges are. And it also identifies for us where our limitations are and where we are limiting the universe. The scripture reminds us that our words become flesh. And in John, the first chapter and the first verse, and I'm reading from the New Living Translation, in the beginning, the word already existed. The word was with God, and the word was God. In the beginning, the word already existed. And then down in verse 14 of the same chapter, it reads, so the word became human and made its home among us. Remember, we become what we say. And so it is an invitation to be mindful of the words that we're saying silently to ourselves, as well as what we're saying out loud. One of the ways we work with the absolute in the awakening is to build our faith muscle. We awaken to the awareness that the only thing that we suffer from is a lack of awareness. The only thing that limits us are our thoughts. Our words can change to, our words can change from I can't to how can I welcome this? Can I be the place where God does this as me? Can I be the place where God does this as me? And am I willing to shift my point of view? Am I willing to entertain other possibilities? Am I willing to entertain another perspective? Am I willing to sit and be in relationship with another and learn their experience and see where we may have shared experiences that unite us under the common umbrella of love? What has God given you? We recognize that nothing is against us and that the universe fully supports us at all times. And so again, we ask the question, how would my life be different if I loved as if no one and nothing was against me? How would my life be different if I loved if I loved myself, first of all, and if I loved everyone and everything else as if nothing was against me, but everything was for me. There's a wonderful story in this month's issue of our Science of Mind magazine on page 6, and I'm just going to quote a part of it. Um, a young father and his two children boarded a cramped city bus, and they discovered seats towards the rear of the bus. And no sooner than the bus had pulled away from the stop, the two youngsters began running back and forth up and down the aisle, screaming and carrying on. The father sat stoically, appearing not to care, not to notice. And after a bit, and this is where the human condition kicks in, the passengers started to mumble, some even turning and glaring disapprovingly at the father, who just sat there with a blank look on his face, staring straight ahead. Eventually, the bus arrived at the man's destination. And as he stood up, the kids rushed down the aisle ahead of him. Before stepping off the bus, he paused and he turned to passengers. And this is what he said: "Please forgive my children. We are returning from the hospital where their mother just died, and they don't yet know how to deal with their feelings about the loss." How many times have we wound up in a situation where we are critical of the behavior or the action of someone else without knowing the cause, without knowing the circumstances behind what is going on? And of course, the article continues on to share how people, once they knew what was going on, began to express their concerns and their cares. Um, what if, just what if, rather than getting annoyed at the children running down the aisle of the bus, what if someone had asked, "What may I do to support this father? How may I go and sit with him or sit beside him? What is going on?" What if someone had just shifted their point of view and said, "I am willing to support you. I am willing to work with you. I am willing to be here no matter what." And so this leads into our conclusion and our call to action for this morning. It may seem like we're innocent bystanders and life just happens to us. Life actually happens through us. We create the viewing point, which causes the reactions. We create the meaning and tie the emotions to each experience. Our call and our charge is to be the place where God shows up, to experience that re-emergence in our own lives of knowing that I am the place where God shows up. I know that I am fully supported by the universe. And as this is true for me, it is true for each one. Today, be a conduit for God. We are the light, after all. Shine on, shine on, shine on. And there have been some inquiries about the homework or the life work assignments that I gave at the beginning of my tenure as your minister. And so here is an extended assignment, and I'm going to ask one of my tech team members to drop these into the chat so that you don't have to worry about writing them down. And for those of you who are familiar with Zoom, when you open the chat window, there is a little icon that is titled File, and there are three dots next to that. If you click on those three dots, it will save the chat. And so you don't have to write these down. But this week, and going forward, we are I'm inviting you to commit to joining our fall 40-day prosperity plan. The kickoff is next Sunday, November the 14th, and this will be doing our celebration service. So in order to prepare for that, I'm asking you this week to purchase your copy of the 40-day prosperity plan. This is to purchase your copy of the book, The Abundance Book by John Randolph Price. And we're asking if you're willing to order it through Amazon Smile and designate the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living as the charitable recipient of the Amazon Smile donations that they provide. Commit to being a part of the kickoff on next Sunday during our celebration service. Commit to working the 40-day prosperity plan with daily meditation and journaling. And for those of you who can, participate in the weekly Thursday evening group meditations and sharing from 6:30 to 7:30 via Zoom. And the Zoom link will be in the newsletter, and we'll post it in the chat next week, because I don't have it for the tech team right now. And then as we expand our prosperity consciousness and know the truth, remember the truth of who we are building up for our gala Christmas Eve candlelight celebration and the conclusion of the 40-day prosperity class. And I invite everyone to prepare and participate in the candlelight celebration. Even if you didn't participate in the 40-day prosperity plan, it is a nice wrap up and a nice invitation to just conclude the year on a high note. And the Amazon Smile link has been posted in the chat. So please copy the chat and follow those guidelines. And in closing, I invite you to remember this. The most important approach to prosperity is through the absolute. If it is true for God, it must be true in manifestation. God is all and in all. It is both desire and fulfillment. It is the prayer and its answer. It is the idea and its manifestation. Let us pray together. As we just sit and embrace this idea that God is for me, the universe is for me, everything is for me, we recognize and remember that there is only one thing happening here, and that is God expressing as itself, expressing as the one life, the one power, the one presence. God is the peace, the love, and the harmony for our country as we continue to navigate through uncertain times and co-create a new normal with the idea that, and the knowing that we are living in a world that works for everyone. And as we move our conversation from I can't to I can, we recognize the growing edges that really support this idea of a world that works for everyone. And so I speak my word declaring that this is already done. It is already complete. And we are embracing this complete idea that this world is a world that works for everyone. And we build those bridges of connections. We build those bridges of love. We build those bridges that transcend doubt and fear and divisiveness. We come together as one community. There is a phrase that is common within spiritual networks, and especially those churches or centers that have multiple locations, and that is one church in many locations. And so it is true for each one of us. We are each a representative of the Christ consciousness, existing in our own individual expression, and yet this expression is multiplied in all locations. The Christ consciousness is not limited to one being or to one particular entity or one particular idea. We're all a part of God's body. Recognizing this as the truth, I know that every prayer request that is held within our hearts and those that have been verbalized out loud are already answered. The answer is in the request. And so I knowing that the answer is yes, and that we move forward and embrace the yes as we commune with the absolute. We just commune with the absolute, knowing that everything is always working for our highest and best good. I bless churches and centers and mosques and all places where people are gathering, recognizing the oneness of life, expressing it in the language of their own heart, because each one of us creates a personal relationship with the God of the understanding of our own heart. And so it is from the heart space that we celebrate ourselves and we celebrate each other. And so, in deep gratitude for this and so much more, I release this word into the law, which always says yes. And I just allow it to be so. And we affirm it as a community by saying, and so it is. And it is now time for us to participate in the law of circulation. And we have our affirmation of abundance. I recognize the presence of God within as the source of my abundance. Out of my abundance consciousness flows everything that I could desire in life. With gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. I release this visible substance as an outer symbol of my inner supply into the physical world. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness. And we will share the multiple ways to experience the law of circulation by mailing in a check to the center. Thank you for those checks that continue to come in. Making a donation through our website. Thank you to our online community for your gracious giving. And also you can text to give, and that number is on your screen. Thank you for joining us this morning to our Facebook community. We will have